Rory McIlroy just finished 66th out of 68 players at the FedEx St. Jude Championship, 25 shots behind Scottie Scheffler. He admitted he felt lost with his golf swing. But while the six major champions struggles on the course, a far more dangerous crisis is brewing behind the scenes. Four major sponsors are quietly triggering performance clauses in their contracts, and the financial implications could be devastating. Rory McIlroy is one of the highest-paid athletes in the world. He earns approximately $20 million per year from Nike and $10 to $12 million annually from TaylorMade, contracts worth an estimated $250 to $300 million combined over their lifetimes. Endorsement deals are lucrative. They come with expectations. Players are typically obligated to compete in at least 15 to 18 PGA Tour events in a season to fulfill their endorsement contracts. If a player fails to meet those obligations, brands are left with a difficult choice: withhold payments, pro-rate compensation, or risk burning bridges with a star who could return to form. McIlroy is currently at risk of falling short of the PGA Tour's own 15-event minimum. He will finish 2026 with just 14 tour starts. The tour has signaled it will use a discretionary clause to protect him from punishment, but sponsors don't have the same discretion. The man who has earned more than $290 million in his career is now facing the possibility that his reduced schedule could trigger financial penalties from his biggest backers. McIlroy is not the only player navigating the complex world of endorsement deals. According to Michael Kim, who played in 30 PGA Tour events in 2024, equipment contracts often require players to use a certain number of clubs from the sponsoring brand, with drivers and putters being the most heavily scrutinized. For top players, reaching the minimum event threshold is easy, but for those who reduce their schedules or who defected to LIV Golf, the math becomes complicated. Imagine you are the CEO or the head of marketing for an equipment maker, GolfWeek asked in 2022. What would you do if a player who was contractually obligated to compete in 15 PGA Tour events and who did not sustain an injury signed with LIV Golf, knowing he'd be suspended and only played 11 or 12? Are you holding the player in breach of contract? The same question now applies to McIlroy. He hasn't defected to LIV, but he has made it clear that the PGA Tour doesn't excite him anymore, and his sponsors are watching. The tour may be willing to protect his biggest star, but the brands paying him millions are not bound by the same loyalty.
McIlroy's performance at the St. Jude Championship was alarming for reasons beyond the scorecard. He shot 74, 70, 72, and 72 to finish 8 over par. He didn't break par in a single round. He ranked 62nd out of 68 players in strokes gained tee to green. "I'm so far away from where I need to be to even feel like I have a chance," McIlroy admitted. "It almost felt like the more the week went on, the more I felt lost with my golf swing." The comments were startling. A six-time major champion, one of the greatest players of his generation, admitted he felt lost with his swing. He didn't blame the course or the conditions, he blamed himself. "I think when you're sort of working through some stuff in your swing, then you start to, I certainly do, sometimes lose awareness of the target," McIlroy said. "You start to make the golf swing more important than the golf shots sometimes, and that's obviously not a good thing either." The man who has won everything in golf is now questioning whether he can compete at all, and the brands that pay him millions are taking notice. According to industry insiders, endorsement contracts often include incentive clauses for things like winning a PGA Tour event, a major championship, or finishing first on tour in driving distance. They also include obligations to compete in a minimum number of events. For elite players like McIlroy, those obligations are usually easy to meet. But McIlroy has played just 11 PGA Tour events this season, with only 4 top 10 finishes and 1 win: the Masters. His reduced schedule has raised questions about whether he is fulfilling his contractual obligations. "If you prorate, you risk pissing off the player or the agent and creating some bad blood," one insider said. "And if there is a deal struck between LIV and the PGA Tour and golfers get to do both at some point in the future, you may have burned a bridge with a star." But the brands are not charities. Nike has invested $20 million annually in McIlroy for years. TaylorMade pays him $10 to $12 million annually. They expect a return on that investment in visibility, in victories, in presence. The brands that have made McIlroy a billionaire are now facing a difficult choice: stand by their star or enforce their contracts.
McIlroy's struggles come at a time when the PGA Tour is facing a broader crisis. The two-tiered system is dividing the locker room, sponsors are walking away, and the FedEx Cup playoffs are being called a failed format. Scottie Scheffler has been the most vocal critic of the playoff system, calling it silly and arguing that it devalues the regular season. You can't call it a season-long race and have it come down to one tournament, Scheffler said. But Scheffler's complaints are about fairness, McIlroy's struggles are about performance, and the sponsors who pay them both are watching closely. The divide between the tour's elite and its rank and file has never been wider, and the sponsors are caught in the middle. 4 major sponsors are quietly triggering performance clauses in their contracts amid Rory McIlroy's slump. The 6-time major champion has struggled on the course, admitted he feels lost with his swing, and is on track to finish the season with just 14 PGA Tour starts, one less than the required minimum. The tour is protecting him, but the sponsors who pay him millions may not be as forgiving. The questions now are impossible to ignore. Will McIlroy's reduced schedule trigger financial penalties from his sponsors? Can he rediscover his form before the Tour Championship? And what does his slump say about the future of professional golf? One thing is certain, the battle is far from over, and the golf world will be watching every move.